Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Saturday evening to you all. Hope you guys are doing well out there. If you had yourselves a great and productive, fun, whatever it may be, Saturday. Great start to your weekend. Not going to keep you guys super long this evening. Really, we're going to just discuss in video form a lot of questions that people have. We're going to try to give you guys some answers, some questions like, hey, us in the South, when are we going to really get into some solid concrete summer type weather? Some folks in the Great Lakes region and the Midwest and the Ohio Valley are wondering, hey, when are we going to see some rain? Two, is this sudden switch to summer legit, or are we going to cool back down? We're going to talk about that. And we'll talk about a couple other topics too. Some severe weather chances. Are we done with it for a while? Is it going to slow down? We'll even give you a brief kind of discussion on the topics, but we'll break down a couple things for you guys. Won't keep you guys very long, but we'll certainly talk about a couple things here. If you folks have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like, and if you guys got anything that I can pray about or pray over, as always, please put it in the comments below so I can do that and so others can do so too. Let's look at the 6 to 10 day temperature outlook. Now, the majority of the video is going to be discussing really the next 7 days, but the beginning of the video, we're going to talk about the Climate Prediction Center and what they think basically between the 6 to 14 day range. But the 6 to 10 day temperature outlook, this was issued literally 45 minutes ago. This is for the June 9th through the 13th, calling for below average temperatures, continuing below average temperatures for the desert Southwest, the southern and central high plains, the southern plains, the south central U.S., the central U.S., the eastern U.S. Confidence is higher where you see the darker blue colors, but this light blue right here, that is a 33 to 40 or 40 to 50% chance of below average temperatures in this time frame. So, that answers your question right off the dot, right? Of what I kind of mentioned in the intro, that are we going to get into some really hot weather? I'm not thinking we are, but we'll talk about what that means, because I think a lot of people immediately think, oh, it's going to be too cold for pool weather or too cold for outdoor activities or swimming in any kind of body of water. That is not the case. I mean, we're getting pretty deep into the year now. We're in June, so a little bit below average. For example, today, here in Columbia, South Carolina, was right at around average, and that's still 88, 89, 90 degrees. So that's plenty warm enough to swim in pools and things like that. But the 6 to 10 day precipitation outlook, which is what a lot of people are wondering, places are getting quite dry. But I can tell you the 9th through the 13th, it's leaning below average as far as precipitation. Around near normal for most of the eastern U.S., but above average precipitation looks almost likely at this point for that period between the 9th and the 13th. Now, between now and then, kind of the same setup. People are probably thinking, well, what about between now and day 6? Well, it's kind of leaning towards the same kind of setup. All right, so this is the 8 to 14 day temperature outlook. All right, you still got this chance for below average temperatures in the northeast and portions of the eastern U.S. But places like the south are starting to get to above average temperatures, and I'm starting to see a deep moisture return show up like past this week coming up, like past day 7. So about a week from today, I can really see some big time moisture beginning to build. Some of those oppressive, uncomfortable dew points and humidity levels are starting to ooze a little bit further north. We've been saved by it so far in the southeast, deep south. It's not going to last much longer. But look, I mean, below average temperatures continue to dominate the western and really the southwestern U.S. The desert Southwest is not seeing super hot temperatures yet. But hey, look, good news is maybe around the mid-month time frame, we can get a better pattern that supports rain. Here in portions of the Ohio Valley, Mississippi Valley, it's still looking below average as far as precipitation in the Great Lakes region, the upper Midwest. We need rain up here too. It's what's wild, guys, is this entire little area right in here, well, large area, this was kind of the road for these low pressures earlier in the year to take. And this area was seeing ice storms, snowstorms, especially in the upper Midwest, rain, severe weather through winter, all the way through spring. But it's like the weather's been cut off in this region. So pretty wild to see. But we look at the national blend of all models, and we'll talk about the central U.S. This does include like the Mississippi Valley and areas of the Midwest also. And we'll start tomorrow. I mean, look, it's much cooler for the high plains, which include western Texas, western Oklahoma, western Kansas, western Nebraska, all the way up through the western Dakotas, and then eastern Colorado, eastern Wyoming, eastern Montana. Anytime I say the high plains, that's this little area right into here. Below average temperatures coming. Still pretty warm up here in eastern Montana. That's definitely not below average, but I mean, it's going to be a pretty uncomfortably hot day in areas of the deep south. And with the humidity levels, you got to watch. Definitely going to be pretty hot tomorrow in like Mississippi, Louisiana, Arkansas, but still warm weather up here, all the way up into Canada, all the way through the Midwest. Very warm weather. But look, as we get into Sunday, some cooler temperatures are starting to move in from the northeast. You got some troughing that's moving in from the northeast, southwest. So a little bit of a backdoor cold front scenario where this happens a lot in the summer up here, but you'll get these wind flow aloft that kind of comes out the north or northeast, and it really digs over the northeast, but influences the Great Lakes region too. But, you know, you get into Monday, still very warm down here in the deep south, very warm all the way up into the Dakotas. But then we get into Tuesday. Look at these highs. Maybe only a 70-degree high in Chicago. Only the 60s. I'm sorry, only the 70s. 60s in the UP and Michigan are possible. But, I mean, look at this. Much cooler up here in this portion of the country. Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan, northern Indiana, northern Illinois. This cold front comes in and cools you down. Then we get into Wednesday. Even cooler, more widespread areas. So this is more typical kind of spring weather, late spring weather for you guys. It's definitely not early spring anymore. But late, you know, I consider this time of the year summer. A lot of people do too up here. Once you get into June, it's flat out summer for us in the South. I even consider May summer. But hey, you can actually see the boundary here where it separates pretty hot weather, upper 80s, low 90s, with just some mid to upper 70s, low 80s. So much more comfortable conditions for the Midwest. And it's definitely going to be a situation where you can open your windows. This will be dry air. Dew points will be low. And then you get into Thursday, and then the temperatures begin to rise again. But as you can tell, down here in the deep south, it's remaining warm. I mean, it's just that time of the year where cold fronts don't really make it or really affect the high temperatures that much. You can push in a little area of dry air, but they're not going to affect the temperatures that much. But it's starting to warm up substantially in Texas. You're starting to get well into the 90s. And then, we get into the weekend. What happens as we get into Saturday and Sunday? Another cold front could push through from the north, and a much more comfortable weekend is looking likely for the upper Midwest. I mean, even cooling down for the northern plains in this region up here. More typical early to mid-June type weather up here for sure. And but it's heating up in the south. This is what I keep wanting to say worried. I'm not worried. This is typical weather. But, you know, the blend of all models as we're getting about 7 to 8 days out starts to show 100s. You're starting to get temperatures in the low to mid-90s with high humidity. So this is when that good old heat index becomes a factor here. But, you know, we start to get into the mid-June time frame. That's a little bit more of an unreliable time frame. But, you know, you look at the eastern U.S. as far as temperatures, and we'll have to back this up some. And I can tell you, tomorrow, a raw day in Maine, New Hampshire, and western Mass, and Rhode Island areas of Connecticut. Absolutely raw. And this trough of low pressure up here is basically funneling in dry, cooler air. So you'll notice in the Carolinas, it'll be much cooler today than it is. It'll be much cooler tomorrow than it is today. I mean, for example, we're hitting about 90 already right here in Columbia. It might only get up to about 80 tomorrow. So another quick hitting cooler air mass settles in for the eastern U.S. But then we warm up quick. We start to warm up for the northeast. Much more comfortable temperatures begin to get into the picture. But for Maine, you guys, it's hard to warm you guys up this week because you're being influenced by a lot of showers, cloud cover. So Maine, it might be a chilly week. But, I mean, you look at the mid-Atlantic, guys. I mean, you look at the portions of the Ohio Valley. I mean, it's very comfortable. 70s as we're getting into Wednesday. Only 70s to low 80s with low humidity in Virginia. Mid-Atlantic, very comfortable conditions for June 7th. But it's quite warm Wednesday, in South Carolina, Georgia, the deep south. And then that cold front makes it all the way down, kind of rides out of the northeast down the spine of the Appalachian Mountains and cools everybody down again. Maybe only 79 degrees for a high, Thursday for Charlotte. And then you start to warm back up as moisture return moves in, and you just can't beat down summer for too long in the southeast. You just cannot. It's going to come. I always call the Midlands of South Carolina the armpit of hell because it is unbearably humid and hot. I know a lot of people will say Florida's hotter, this part of Georgia's hotter. I would say there's a corridor from Macon, Georgia to Augusta, Georgia, to Columbia, South Carolina, to Fayetteville, North Carolina. I would argue it's one of the most miserable places in the southeast once you get into July and August in the country. When you factor in dew points in sometimes the low to mid to upper 70s, air temperatures into the low to mid 90s, that makes your heat index every single day in the summer like pushing 105, 110 degrees. And yes, I would argue Florida and South Georgia probably has higher humidity levels and along the Gulf Coast, but your air temperatures probably don't get as high as ours does. But that's always kind of a fun argument in the weather world. But I'm telling you, it is hard to breathe. In fact, it gets so hot here in Columbia, South Carolina, that once you get into July and August, all you hear outside in the prime of the day in the afternoon, you don't even hear any kids playing outside much anymore. I mean, there are kids. I know I did. But I don't know if kids just like being inside more these days. But in our neighborhood, once it gets to July and August, it's close to dangerous to be outside. But all you hear when you walk outside at 3 or 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon is the AC's humming. You don't hear many kids unless they're playing in a body of water or with a water hose. We have a well. I let my girls play with a water hose all the time. But anyways, getting way off track there. But another great way to look at this changing of air masses is dew points. These are dew points. Humid air is associated with these mid to upper 60s. But you can see the cooler air that moves through. Look at these dew points that blast through the Ohio Valley, the Great Lakes region. These dew points are into the 40s and 30s. So this is comfortable air. You'll be able to open up your windows, let your house breathe a little bit from this hot, stagnant air you've been dealing with. You just need some rain in this region. We're getting into midweek. Beautiful air mass. Dew points in the 30s and 40s. That's humidless air. No humidity whatsoever. With temperatures in the 70s. So this is a nice air mass. And I mean, even, crisp air is making it all the way down to Tennessee, northern Alabama too. And this is kind of what's going on. You look at the pattern. We've been dealing with this massive ridge of high pressure up in Canada for like 2 weeks. Okay. Finally, it's somewhat replaced by troughing, which is in the blue. Trough of low pressure. As you can tell, these isobars are buckling this way. That's indicating dry air is shooting in from the northeast to the southwest, and that's why you get that nice dry air. But as you can tell, just troughing sets up over the eastern U.S. for the foreseeable future. This is getting like 10 days out. And, we go all the way to 12, 13, 14 days out, and you get like a zonal flow. So it's tough. I'm not seeing any really big heat anytime soon, to be honest with you, for anybody. But a lot of people are wondering about rain, so we'll talk about this briefly. And a lot of people in Illinois, Missouri, Indiana, Ohio, Pennsylvania, even in Arkansas, maybe even Kentucky and Western Tennessee need some rain. But I can tell you, we get into Sunday, and of course, we're not looking at a short-range model. We're only looking at global models. So basically, where you see blobs of rain, it could be storms. But we get into Monday. Maybe some rain showing up for areas of Missouri, Arkansas. Not a lot. We get into Tuesday. Nothing for this area that needs rain. Not a whole lot going on. You get into Wednesday. Nothing. Maybe some rain for Minnesota and Iowa. We get into Thursday. Not a whole lot, guys. I mean, we're getting some rain showing up in the south, but I mean, you guys don't need the rain as much as you do in those states I just mentioned a minute ago. I mean, you get into this weekend, and you might start to get a little bit of a flow that supports it. But, man, I'm telling you, over the next week, I'll be completely honest with you guys. I don't see much rain. This is between now and next Friday. Well, Friday the 9th, the June 9th, midday. Not a whole lot of rain showing up. Hardly nothing. This is the blend of all models. This tweaks back and forth, but you're still getting a flow that just does not support. So even though you're cooling down, you get that dry, stable air mass that moves in. It's stable. So you're not getting thunderstorm development. So you run into two issues here. Either one, you get high pressure center right over you, which has been the case for this portion of the country over the last 2 weeks. And unless you're way away from the actual center of high pressure, that surface high, if you're like right next to it, you get a really stagnant airflow and a lot of sinking air. Remember, you need rising air for storm development. So, and unless you get rid of that, which you do, but in this case, you get kind of a backdoor cold front scenario that sweeps through this entire Midwest Ohio Valley region, Great Lakes, upper Midwest. But there's no moisture associated with this cold front passage. So you're not going to get any cool rain with it. So after it passes through, dry, stable air moves in. So it dries out. It dries out and you continue. Yeah, I mean, you're not hot anymore, but you don't get any rain with this either. So, we get into next weekend. It does show a little bit of a system that could potentially give you guys rain sometime late next weekend. And we'll watch this. Okay, this is really needed, and hopefully it happens, but we'll continue to keep you guys updated. As far as severe weather, I mean, tomorrow we have a risk of severe storms in Tennessee and maybe northern Georgia, maybe even areas of western North Carolina and North Alabama. But outside of that, this is just typical summer kind of stuff. We go to day 3, which is for Monday. No risk of severe storms right now, just a general risk of storms for like 60-70% of the country. So not a big, it might not be a big severe weather day at all, not even a little bit. But, basically from day 4 to day 8 on the Storm Prediction Center, the potential is too low all the way until you get to day 7, which would be for, next Friday and a Saturday, day 8. It says predictability too low. Potential too low means that, there's a very low chance. Predictability too low means, hey, there's probably a chance, but the confidence is very low on what exactly happens, which, is normal for 7 to 8 days out. So we're watching maybe a trough ejection from the southwest throughout the middle of the country sometime about a week out from today. Not exactly sure what's going to happen with that, but we'll keep you guys updated. That's all I got. You guys have a great night. God bless all y'all, and I'll talk to you in the morning.